Do you want to replace your cheap miter saw throat plate with one made out of hardwood? Me too. Would you rather build than buy? Me too. Is it difficult? I'll show you how I did it and then you can be the judge.
So I grabbed this piece of an old pallet and ended up sawing it to length, actually a little bit too big. And then I ripped it to width about a 1/4 inch wider than the original throat plate. That'll give me 1/8 of an inch on each side, which will work good at the router table to clean that all up. And then I ended up ripping it on the table saw again, the thickness, sort of like a planer would, but in this way I was able to make multiple passes and kind of sneak up on the finished dimension, taking the bow out of it along the way. I don't really know if this is the best way to do that or not, but that's the way that I was going to give it a try, and it seemed to work pretty well. I ended up cleaning up my mess here, cleaning up the piece of board, and then I made sure that I stuck my arm right in the way so that you couldn't see me sanding, but nobody really cares about sanding anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. In fact, I really sped the video up so that we could move on from the sanding and get right to this place here where we end up putting the double-sided tape on the blank and then put the original throat plate on top of the blank so that we can take it over here to the router table where we have a flush trim bit set up at the right height so that the bearing rides along the original throat plate, and obviously the cutting part of the flush trim bit takes off the material. This is where I said that I may have left it a little bit too long. There was quite a bit to nibble away and leave for the bearing to do all the work with. So I made a couple passes there to make sure that I got a nice clean fit to the original throat plate, and it actually turned out pretty nice. Then I ended up breaking the old throat plate apart, not actually breaking it, but taking it off the double-sided tape off the blank, getting rid of that. Kind of slow with this process. There he goes. And some more sanding. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, hey, dummy, you didn't trace the holes out on that original throat plate. Well, that was a pretty good call. You're paying sharp attention. I had to lay it back over top of it and just kind of feel the edges and get it lined up in order to figure out where those holes were going to go. I took it over to the drill press and ended up with a brad point bit, drilling the holes, all 6 of them here. And I know what you're saying to yourself, hey, you need to have a board underneath that so you don't drill into your table. Well, fortunately for me, Dave's drilled into this table more than once, so it was no big deal. Once I had the holes drilled through, I ended up finding myself a center drill, actually, because I didn't have a countersink the right size or a counter bore, and was able to break the backside edge of those holes so that the wood fibers that came through during the drilling process don't hold it up off of the mounting points on the saw itself, if that makes sense. And then I went ahead and flipped it over and went ahead and counterbored to the right depth, and the right depth was just wherever I stopped boring. I didn't set the depth stop on the drill press, but it didn't matter. It actually turned out pretty good. A little more sanding, and now here's what we're looking for. Pull the old throat plate out, stick the new one in, see if those holes line up. Went ahead and grabbed the screws, and what do you know? They all ended up exactly where they were supposed to be. I actually wish I could tighten screws this fast. That'd be awesome. You could use a power tool, but you run the risk of stripping out those threads, and being that the threads are in the saw itself, I didn't want to run that risk. I went ahead and made a couple other upgrades too. As long as I was doing stuff to the saw, I swapped out for an actual plywood cutting blade, or a higher tooth count blade that Dave actually had in the cabinet, and went ahead and threw that on there after I cleaned it up a little bit. Got it tightened on the arbor. I got rid of the old dust bag, and I have a new Dust Right kit from Rockler that I got. The dust collection on this saw is not exactly great, but I went ahead and upgraded that. And this is where you end up cutting that initial slot in for your zero clearance. Beautiful. So I figured I'd go ahead and make a test cut with this hard maple that I'd been working with. And it doesn't exactly cut like butter, so I figured that'd be a good test to see what the tear out's like. I cut off a little bit of the end, and I kind of got a little bit of an idea of what I was looking at, but I figured I'd make another cut here, and I got a better idea of how this was going to perform, making sure what that tear out looks like, and I figured I'd come up close and show you guys what what it looks like. You can see the edge there, pretty clean. It's the backside that had no support that actually had the tear out on it, which I think is what we're looking for. There she is in all her glory. I threw a little paste wax on it to protect it, make it a little bit slippery, and hopefully she'll last a long time like this. Thanks for watching Dave's Old Workshop. Hey, if you got something intelligent to say, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Otherwise, go ahead and subscribe, like, and hit that little bell so that you know when we're dropping new videos over here.